Okay, so I thought it'd be a good practice for us to review the equipment compartment on a Dimension 1. In this case, it's a Triad. This is a 2000, I believe 21. You can see in a moment here, but it's using this, YT8 pack here. 6600-519 is the part number. Quickly do a quick walk around it here. See turtle. It's got the touch screen here. Does not have a sequencer. Down here, it's one spot where we're gonna often see the serial number, except I don't see it here. Usually there'll be a plate there for the serial number, and then the drain. Actually, that's where the serial number plate would have been. This is the Ultralife shell. Got the frog in it. Got this one here. You're gonna see like more of a floating skimmer basket here. This would be for the pump when we turn it on, and then the lid only is for the circulation pump. When we are needing to clear out an airlock, this is what we're referencing. Taking these off, forcing the hose over this, turning it on, and forcing water out through there if there's some kind of obstruction, blockage, or just air. So it's kind of showing what we're referencing in that case. Let's take a look at the equipment compartment. So we're seeing the two pumps here. The Triad is a two-pump system, but each pump is only one speed in this case. So these two pumps are going to be the same pump. It obviously is using that circulation pump. That is the 6500-080NA. Has an ozonator, top left. Serial number here. We can see the date. Actually, I guess 21, it's 22. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the components. Another thing we have here, this is the smart tub. This provides phone monitoring via a smart tub app. It's a Jacuzzi product. In this case, it does not need to use internet, which is why it only plugs into the board here. It doesn't need to plug into like a router or anything inside. So let's go ahead and look at this first. So one thing, we need to make sure that we do when servicing a spa is we need to make sure that we're getting all these off. Occasionally forget to get one, loosen it. You don't take it out all the way. It can't come out all the way. You just loosen it. Now, normally we would not do this with the power on right here, but in this case we will, so we can look at a few things. As far as servicing the spa, safety-wise, 100% of the time, we should be coming here and turning the power off. So let's take this off here. So what we're seeing here, in addition to old dog head here, is obviously the circuit board. This is again the YT8. Look at a couple things here. This is kind of how we can reference what kind of software it has. The 367, you're going to see this on Dimension 1 products. So that's like the Dimension 1 software firmware number. You're also going to see like a D11, D12. So If there's another product, let's say we are servicing a D1, we buy a new pack and we want the genuine OEM product, but we don't see this or this, we might want to look into that, because we might have a YT8 with the incorrect firmware. So that won't communicate appropriately with the top side. Okay, so let's start with the circulation pump. So again, here's the flow switch. You can actually, probably can't hear it well, but this paddle, we can see it moving. Look at, there it goes. So see it moving? There we go. So this is how these are operating. This is reading flow right now. If this was stuck, if it wasn't moving, if it was open, if we saw pockets of air bubbles in here, those are all things that could indicate a flow issue, a cause of flow issue. Bad flow switch, air trapped in the system. This is just a good thing that we can see this close up, kind of see it moving to see how it operates. So real simple how this is working. So here's a circulation pump in here, and just like a jet pump, which we'll look at in a moment too, there is the intake, right? So this is bringing in water, and then there's the discharge right there. And so the discharge is doing this. It's coming around, looping around, right? So the flow switch then is reading appropriate flow before the heater, sending it here through the heater, into the spot. So it's kind of a good thing to see how that system is operating here. So when we have flow issues, a lot of things could be happening. It could be an issue with the circulation pump itself, could be an issue with the flow switch, could be an issue with the PC board. So let's look at a couple things here. Let's look at the flow switch where it plugs in, okay? I'm sorry, the circulation pump. So one thing, we can do a couple things. We can trace it. We come up here, we can trace it, see where things are plugging in. I think it's better to just reference the wiring diagram here. So in this case, we can just go right over here. Look at that. Circ pump C2, CP, circ pump C2. Let's go over and look at C2. C2, which is the second one down, circ pump. So we got C1, C2, C3, C4. On the other side, it goes in the opposite direction, okay? A4, A3, A2, A1. Look down here. Tells you where everything goes. Look over here. A4, A3, A2, A1. So this is a good thing to see as well, because what we see happening here, let's quickly take this off so we can make it easier. There it goes, just landed there. So again, this is the circulation pump. Then just look what's happening. So the circ pump goes into this female end here, this plug, and then essentially all that's happening is we got black, white, and green, and those then are going to their corresponding places on the PC board, right? So we look down here, that's what we're seeing. X, Y, and G. Now the X, Y, and G, I'm sorry, the X and Y relate to voltage, and the G is for the ground. So the white wire can either be on the X or the Y, depending on the voltage. Now in this case, and in pretty much all cases with Dimension 1, we're dealing with 240 volt. If we had a 120 volt circulation pump, technically we could change the location of the white wire from X to Y. We wouldn't do that, I don't believe, but that is something that can be done, just like any other PC board. And then the black is going to one of the relays. So whatever relay is responsible for turning on the circulation pump. So usually that information is on the schematic as well, right? So It is, and if we look at, remember, the circulation pump is plugging into C2, right? So let's go down to C2, and we'll see black wire goes to K22P. So let's go up and look at the relay for K22. There it is, K22. So right here, black wire, we chase that. We're gonna get back to the circulation pump. Again, I got the power on right now. This probably should not be done with the power on, but we're gonna turn this on in a moment and see some things, so I didn't want to power it down. So another thing to look at, so for troubleshooting, a circulation pump isn't working. Well, it could be a stuck relay. It could be an issue with the relay, right? It could be an issue with, we got flow issue with the flow switch. We got an issue with the circ pump. Well, another thing that could be going on is just a bad fuse, right? So if we look again at the schematic, we got fuse here of F21, okay? We got on here. Look at this, C2 F21. So circ pump isn't working at all. Relay's just clicking. Well, maybe it is just the fuse. The F21 fuse is responsible for everything on that C side. So we look at all the things that plug into C. Right here, we got direct one. No, we don't have anything plugged into direct one here. Circ pump, fan, ozone. So let's look back up here. Circ pump, fan, which we'll look at in a moment. Ozone. See, that's going to the ozone right here. The fan that's being referenced, if you look behind the circ pump there, it's back there. Occasionally what will happen is a technician, or even from the manufacturer, whether it be Dimension One or somebody else, will accidentally swap these two, the fan and the circ pump. Now we don't want that, right? Because the circ pump is running right now, currently. The fan is not. The fan will run when we turn on both jet pumps, because these jet pumps are creating, a lot of thermal heat. So that is then when the fan will turn on. So this is sometimes another thing, guys, that we have a problem with a technician, or even, like I said, from the manufacturer, is these two things, if they're swapped, the fan and the circulation pump, because someone did not reference this, or just simply, there's a lot of wires here, so it's hard to kind of know what you're plugging in. These two both look similar. So that will result in the circulation pump not working correctly. One way to kind of figure that out, so while we're looking at this is a great practice here. So the issue here is, after maybe a technician or customer install, the circulation pump isn't turning on. Well, look right now that the circulation pump is running, right? Let's come back to the top side. Now what we're gonna do, it's hard to see, we got bad. Okay, so we go settings. Now we're gonna go to, where are we going here? We're going to maintenance, I believe. Yep, right there, standby. All pumps are off, okay? Now let's look at the water coming out of the circulation pump. The circulation pump should have turned off. So if the circulation pump did not turn off, usually that indicates that the plugs are plugged into the wrong spot. So that's one way to test it here, is if a customer or technician does this and the circulation pump does not turn off, usually that means that is not plugged into the right spot. We're gonna hit cancel. Now you guys can't hear it, but I can hear a click indicating that the pump has turned back on, and a click also indicating that it turned off. So that was the relay clicking. I could see that that had turned off and then back on. Okay. Now really one thing is we still saw a little bit coming out of there, even though the circulation pump had turned off. But we're really more looking at that one over there, not this for the ozone. We're looking at that over there. So let's look again at this PC board and look at a couple other things. So again, with this circulation pump, it has, you know, this style amp cord. Now, what if this is not available? You know, we're trying to purchase this pump from Dimension One, it is not available. Well, there are other options maybe that don't have the plug, right? But they just have the spade connectors that plug directly into the board. Well, that's okay. So we can do a couple things. Now, obviously you can, you know, right there at the top, you can put a new plug, a new wire in essentially. But it's just as easy if we have only spade connectors, is what if we came in here, you know, we don't have the plug, remember, but what if we came in here and we just, with the spade connectors, plugged in directly to where we need to on the board, right? So the plug is going here, and then a white wire is going to the X from here. The black is going right there, and then the green is just going to a ground. So imagine that, wire coming in, spade connector, the white going here, black going here, green to the ground. So that's why we can utilize that as well if we don't have a style with that plug. So that kind of covers the circulation pump. A couple other things to look at. Let's look at the jet pumps here. Now these are, you know, the LX pumps that are going to be used, I believe, in Dimension One 2000, maybe 2015 on, and most reflections, at least 2017 on. You're going to see them also in Bay Series, but Bay Series also uses a Gecko. So with reflection, we're using this LX pump. In most cases, we're also using it with the at-home. This is obviously, you know, it has the bracket, does not come with its own base, right? So it's the pump with the bracket. So the bracket can be reused. You can just, you know, loosen it here. Now look again, there's not a lot of room in here. So, you know, there's, when you are replacing a pump, you know, we have to get back there to these wet ends. Now remember, you know, we can shut off these valves, you know, pull this off, and push that down, right? So that's how we're gonna work on these. But remember, when you push these down, there's still some water in that pump, so you're still gonna get wet, and there's still gonna be water going through here. So we wanna be careful with that. The pumps have their own, you know, they have stickers on them with the part number. There it is. Now, there's going to be a part number for both Jacuzzi and LX in there. I don't know, I can't see my phone, so I don't know if we got it, but top right is going to be the Jacuzzi or Dimension One part number. Any Jacuzzi product is going to have that top right number, and then there's also on the top left, I believe, that part number for the LX. Perhaps you can see it better on this pump over here. Yes, okay. So again, we've got the Dimension One part number, or the Jacuzzi part number, and then we also have the, right there, the LX part number. Okay. All right, so the pumps are doing the same thing, right, as the circulation pump. They have their own place to plug in, their own responsibility. So same thing, we look here. Pump one, low. I'm sorry, pump one low, pump one high. So essentially, I mean, it's just telling you that each speed goes into A3. Same thing with A2. So remember, we go over here, we're going from top to bottom now. So A3, pump one, A2, pump two. Let's look at that. Here we are. So this triad doesn't have a lot going on, so we just have the two pumps right here. Same thing here. Again, these are 230 volt pumps. So we got, instead of X and Y, we got neutral, and we got L. You can't see an L there, but that, maybe you can. Nope, it's at the top. There we go, L2, sorry. So we got L2 and neutral. So L2 is for 230 volts, neutral is for 115 volts, and then the green is for the ground. So again, I mean, imagine if you didn't have the plug, you're still plugging directly into spade connectors. And remember also that when you're dealing with a customer with a Gecko board, so a non-OEM, it doesn't really matter if it's a Gecko board, a YE5, YJ2, YJ3, YE3, YT8, then we can also have the pump, even if we've got, and you guys know this, 230 coming in. We can still have the pump or the components being 115 volt, so plugging into neutral. So you see one there, that white right there. Well, doesn't mean anything because look, that corresponds with that plug there. Well, what's plugged in there? Nothing. So we don't need to worry about that white wire being plugged into the neutral. Again, those are all corresponding to relays. So if we look at the black wires, right? So like look at the black wire. There it is, going to a relay. Now remember, red, high speed, black, low speed. So there's a red going to high speed relay. There's a red going to high speed relay. And then there's blacks going to low speed relays. Those black boxes. Again, we'll look at that down here. Tells us the relays they're going to. These are the relays. You know, we're looking at A2 and A3. A2, black, red. A3, red, black. Tells us the relay for each. It even tells us the fuse. So again, we got an issue with a pump not working. The relay is clicking, pump's not turning on. Well, sometimes it's as simple, right, as checking that fuse. So let's say that's the case with, you know, pump, we got A2, so pump 2. Let's say pump 2. Pressing pump 2, it's not turning on. So we got pump 2. We're going to look at the fuse, F3. So we just need to go to the board and find the F3 fuse. Now it's usually easy to find. If you can't find it right away, just go over here. Like, oh, there it is. Let's go up. Bam, there's the F3. The best way to test that, guys, is voltage across it. You know, it's, people test for continuity. It's better to just take your meter. You know, if you're doing other work, you're probably metering out for voltage. Just put a prong on each side and see if there's any voltage at all going through that fuse. If there is voltage going through that fuse, well, that's an issue with the fuse. And that's the case that we would replace the fuse. So a couple other things to note here. Let's look at the heater real quick. So we've got the heater, you know, right here. And we got heater plugs. So if we look here at the heater plugs, what we're not seeing is the white wire. Well, we are, but it's not going in right here, right? So this is the issue a lot of technicians run into in replacing a heater. They might get those three right, you know, the green, the black, and the red, which is pretty easy. But again, we need to encourage technicians to, and homeowners, whoever's changing a heater and servicing their spa, we need to encourage them to refer to the schematic. Let's look at what the schematic says. So we look down here. Okay, it shows us where things are going for the heater, right? Here's what we're also seeing. We got the brown wire. We need to look at that. We're looking at other wires down here, where they need to go. So what we're doing essentially is looking at all the connections. Now here's the heater connections. So it's telling us where everything needs to go, right? We talk about the TCO, which we'll look at in a minute, the ground, and then the relay. So K25P, let's look at that. K25P, let's see if we can find it. K22, K25P, right? So it's telling us this heater is essentially broken down into two elements. A lot of people aren't aware of that. It's equaling 5.5, but there is a second element that is going to have the white wire. So that is what is wrong a lot. We'll get, you know, customers, technicians that don't put that white wire in the correct place. Okay, that's why it's not heating. So let's look at that here. White wire, where does that need to go? Look at that, K25P. If it wasn't going there, which just happens all the time, if it was going there, there, almost anywhere else, heater not working. So, all right, so let's see what else we can cover quickly here. There's a couple other things that are important to know. One is this here, you know, to get less technical. This is called a shroud. So you're gonna hear people talk about this and maybe how they're going to get to something behind a shroud, right? So they need to do some kind of service. How do I get there? Well, here's how you get there. It's a pain. Cut it open. So I did this sloppily to change out some lights. So there are light lenses back there. So I cut into it with like a Dremel tool. This one I did a little better. Cut into it, I folded it back, stuck the foam back in there after I completed the surface. So let's quickly look at what I did there. So I cut into that, right? Why did I do that? Because I had to get behind it to replace this light lens. Same thing on that side. That is why we see that cut into. I just didn't clean it up as good there. So we'll look at a couple other things in the tub here, but again, reminder, we gotta encourage people to always review this schematic here. Also, top right tells us the configuration needs to be in. All the time, a technician will wonder, you know, after installing a new board, they get a new pack, what configuration is it supposed to be in? Well, it's almost always written on the old pack. You know, the new pack is usually going to come in configuration number 1, but the old pack is going to show the configuration number it should be in. Speaking of configuration number, if we're going to be able to see the screen here, we can do that. So I just installed a new pack. I want to put it in the correct configuration. I go to settings. I'm trying to see here. Electrical configuration. Config. Oops, not phases. Oops. Okay, sorry, the screen is hard to see here, isn't it? There we go. Electrical config. Config, and then we just do up and down to choose the number. Confirm. Now we're going to press for 5 seconds. There we go, it's our view. We're going to put in the code 555. It's hard to see. It's 5555, by the way. 5555, and then enter. Okay, so that's it, and then it's going to reset. We're not going to do that. We're going to cancel. So that's how we would do the configuration. Blue icon here is getting us back to the main screen. So a couple other things to look at here. Let's go ahead and turn on the jets. Turn on number 1 first. We're going to bring on that side. Good. We're going to turn on now jet 2. We got multiple 1. Jets are running here. Got our main diverter right here. It's the main diverter. So we got all to one side right now. Press it to one side. There we go. So this is our main diverter to go from one side to the other, essentially. So a lot of times you just saw that kind of got like stuck, and I had to really turn that. Go ahead over here. This is our neck box. See this a lot. We call them these stickers coming off. So we can pull this up here. These jets coming out. A lot of people call or something and say that this isn't on. We just have to go and make sure that these are turned on. Push it down before you cover it on. Let's go and turn this off now. Okay, actually let's do one more thing. Let's go ahead and turn this on. What you can't see is that fan back there. You can't see that. Actually, is it on? No, it's not on right now. But sometimes that fan will turn on when like one of the pumps is on. So that kind of helps cool it down. It's actually not running right now. But see what happens with the flow switch? Well, obviously we got good flow. The pumps are running right now. Look at one more thing. We were talking about the standby mode earlier. Go ahead. Can't see it. There we go. Turn it back on, and let's go ahead and put it in standby mode again, right? So let's go here, standby. So Look, everything's running. Standby mode. Everything shut off. Let's get it out of standby mode now. Cancel. And now we can turn the pumps back on. Say bye, turtle. Turtle.